I am standing here enjoying fresh baked bread. It's still warm from the baker. It's so good. I made it myself. It was really easy, and I'm going to show you what I did. Stick around. Hi, and welcome to my channel, My Handmade Lifestyle. I'm Patty. I go by Patty Mac Makes everywhere online. On this channel, we bake, we make, we do all those fun things that you never got to do in home ec because you probably didn't have home ec. Well, we're doing them now. I wound up picking up a new bread machine. Right behind me, there's a loaf of bread that just finished baking. I'm going to take it out and reveal to you the beautiful, beautiful bread that you can bake at home. And yeah, I'm going to show you how to do it. It's easy, but it's picky. So you want to follow the steps, and you want to make sure that you measure everything just right. So let's jump in. I'll show you what I did, and then let's slice this beautiful bread. And I'm just using the recipe right out of the booklet that came with the bread machine. Let's talk about what's in the recipe. What's in the recipe is room temperature water, 3/4 cup. Next to it, down here, I have my 1.5 tablespoons of softened butter. Over here, I have my sugar. I have 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using a superfine sugar. It's a caster sugar that I get in your grocery store. If you can find Domino's superfine, that is a good equivalent. And I like to use the superfine sugar because it is a much finer grain, and so it's going to dissolve better into our mixture than if I use like a regular granulated sugar. Next to it here, I have salt. I have 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Here, I have 3/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast. So this brand is like readily available, usually, in all grocery stores. Just be looking for it. It is on your baking aisle. You are looking for the words active dry yeast. That's what you want. What that means is active dry. What that means is the yeast is active, and so you don't have to first put it into the warm water and prove it and bubble it and all that stuff. You can skip that step. It makes it easier for you. So if you can get your hands on this, and I really hope that it comes back soon because I'd like to replenish some of my supply also. But active dry, that's what you want. You want active dry yeast. If you get just regular dry yeast, that's a whole other animal, and we'll try that in a different video. But active dry yeast, that's your friend. Another ingredient that you may not be familiar with, and that is dried milk. And I get mine through King Arthur flour. I have it on hand. It goes into a lot of baking recipes, and so I always keep that on hand. It's kind of unusual, but you know, it's good. You can use it in cookies, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, the dry milk, and you can just find dry milk on the baking aisle in your grocery store. And the star of our show is back here, and that is the bread flour. You can use regular, like all-purpose flour. It'll be a little bit different of a crumb. So if you can get the bread flour, get the bread flour. The protein is a little bit different in bread flour as opposed to all-purpose. And here's what I want to share with you. The recipe itself calls for 2 cups of bread flour. And when I read the reviews on this little machine, I almost, I hesitated to get it. I'll just put it that way. Because the reviews were not good and people were having a lot of trouble with it working and all kinds of stuff. But I decided I can always return it. I'm going to get it and try it. And for me, it has worked really well. And I kind of think what's happening is people are not measuring their flour correctly. So I converted my bread flour into gram measurements. So it's 260 grams, and I measure all my baking ingredients, except for the tablespoons and the teaspoons in this case. I just carefully measured those. using this, which again, you want to make sure you have a really good set of measuring spoons. Don't just use the cutesy ones at HomeGoods. The cutesy ones at HomeGoods are great if you want a little display or decoration. Don't use those in your baking. You want to buy a good set. I got these from King Arthur Flour. I know that they're calibrated properly, and you really want precision in baking. So make sure you have good measuring spoons, wet measure, and really I can't stress enough the importance of switching to weighing your ingredients rather than just like a measure. A trick with this little bread maker is you have to load the ingredients correctly into the little baker tin that snaps into the machine. That's really important. So we want to be really careful how we put these ingredients into that tin. And let's look and see exactly what they tell us to do. So the first thing they want us to do is to add the water to the bread pan. That's what they're calling it, the bread pan. So we're going to pour the water in. Then we take our butter and we're going to cut that into quarters, and we're going to distribute it into the 4 corners of the pan. So spread that out on the 4 corners. The next thing that I personally do is I go ahead and put in some of that flour, and then I add the salt so that the salt is buried in the flour. Then I put in the rest of my flour, I put in the dry milk, the sugar, and then I'll put the yeast on top. You don't want the yeast to touch the salt. That's really important. Do not let the yeast touch the salt. That's why I have the salt and the sugar in different little bowls, so that it's a visual cue so I don't get them mixed up. Really important. So on the ingredients here, we're going to go ahead and put all that dry stuff in. Then it says to make a small well in the flour. Put the dry yeast into the well. Don't let it touch the liquid. It's like, you have to be really careful about some things. Then what we're going to do is I'm just going to use program 1, and we're going to make sure that we snap our bread pan properly into the machine. We're going to close the top. We're going to plug it in, turn it on, and just let it do its thing. And it's as simple as that. Now it's a long cycle. It's 3.5 hours. So don't do like I did the first night and think at 5 o'clock you're going to have fresh bread with dinner, unless you eat a really late dinner. So make sure that you start it in time if you want it with your dinner. So all you do is just be really careful how you measure, be really careful how you load the bread pan. But once it's in the machine, it does everything on its own. So we're setting it up, we're gonna let it run, and I'll see you back here in 3.5 hours, and we'll take this bread out and see what we've got. The bread is amazing. I want you to see that. It's as soft as a cloud. Everything is mixed. It's beautiful texture. I'm so happy with the little loaves of bread. Now it is small, so you're going to be baking more frequently, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's better if you make or bake or whatever in small batches, because then you're always having something fresh. And once you've had fresh baked bread, you will not go back to the store-bought. My opinion is this little bread machine is well worth it. 60 bucks, free shipping. I've used it several times. I'm very happy with it. So if you're in the market for a bread maker, I think it's a good one. I highly recommend this little bread machine. For $60, I think it's a great investment. And I don't know how long we're going to be here. Probably a while. And I will say, while I've been doing the quarantine cooking, I've been making everything from scratch, and I kind of like the cooking. It's been really good. So the Little Cook's Essentials bread maker is a good machine. So that's what I've got for you. I hope it helps you if you're trying to decide if you want to invest in a bread machine. I would do it. And okay, that's the video. I appreciate you hanging out, and I'll see you in the next video.